Hi everyone. We're about to shoot episode 3 of the AI Workflows by Role series. I am really excited for this one, but with that being said, I wanted to take a little bit of a personal note on the start of this. I so far have about 50 plus videos under my belt, and while that's awesome, I'm always trying to improve upon those. Each episode I'm trying to make better than the last. I have a couple friends of mine who have offered their input in regards to the flow of the videos, and I am taking that into consideration. For those of you who don't know me personally, I do have a big personality, and I am very happy and upbeat most of the time. And so the comment that I received from someone close to me basically said, let your personality shine. You have the personality that can fill a room, so show that to others. And so the other comment I received was basically that some of the visuals are great, but I wish there was more follow along type of visuals. Visuals that broke down deep concepts so that it was more digestible for the average person. But overall, the entire point of this is basically to say that I am listening and I appreciate the input and I appreciate the support. So with that being said, thank you for following along so far. We're about to get into episode 3 of our AI Workflows by Role series. Stay tuned. 91% of companies already use AI somewhere in their hiring process, but only about 1 in 5 have anything close to a real system. The rest are stitching together tools with duct tape and hoping for the best. Today I'm going to show you the full pipeline. 5 agents, 1 workflow from the recruiter's side of the screen. And if you're a job seeker, stick around, because this system is already being used on you. And if you're not hearing back, I understand that that's the most frustrating part. It just feels like it doesn't matter and like you don't matter. Even if you have a great skill set, even if you're a great employee, I've watched friends who are fantastic workers, people with a decade of experience, go 6+ months without landing something. That's terrifying. So let's pull the curtain back and let's figure this out together. Here's the math that breaks every recruiter. Let's say you've got a role open. Say it's a senior back-end developer. You post it on LinkedIn, your careers page, maybe Indeed. Within 72 hours, you've got 250 applicants. Maybe 10 of those are actually qualified, and you've got to find those 10 buried in 250 resumes while your hiring manager pings you every other day asking, where are we on this? Oh, and you have 14 other open recs, just like it. The average time to hire right now is around 44 days. And yeah, that sounds about right. It obviously depends on the level and what kind of role. Almost anybody can find a job within a week, but those roles aren't necessarily what you want. You can go find a fast food job pretty quickly. But if you've got a decade of work experience and you're looking for a specific role at a specific pay, that can take a long time. Every one of those days costs the company money. The team is understaffed, projects are stalling, and the best candidates are getting offers from your competitors in 2 weeks while you're still scheduling first-round interviews. The old playbook was hire more recruiters or outsource to agencies who charge 20 to 25% of first-year salary. A $100,000 hire just cost you $25,000 in agency fees, and you're still doing most of the coordination yourself. There's a better way to do this. Let's take a look. If you've been following this series, you know the framework. Agents aren't chatbots. A chatbot waits for you to ask a question. An agent has a job description, a set of tools, and it knows what you want to do with the output. Deliver it or hand it off to the next agent. But recruiting adds something the other roles we've covered didn't have. Legal guardrails. New York City's Local Law 144 already requires annual bias audits on any AI tool used in hiring decisions. Penalties run $500 to $1,500 per day if you're not compliant. And that's just New York City. States across the country are drafting similar legislation. And honestly, I think that's great. There are a lot of horror stories from early AI before we really understood how bias worked in these systems. But here's the thing that's so interesting to me. Every single person has bias. It's what gives you your perspective in the world. So to see that human bias come out in AI is fascinating. It's not funny for the people it affects, but it's a human problem reflected in technology. So the pipeline I'm about to show you isn't just about speed. It's about speed with an audit trail. Every agent needs to log what it did, why it did it, and produce outputs that can survive a compliance review. That constraint actually makes the system better. It forces structure. Okay, let's build the team. Agent 1 takes that and produces a complete structured job spec. Skills-based requirement, not must have a CS degree from a top 20 school, but actual competencies the role needs. Inclusive language, scoring tools like Textio have shown that word choice in job description directly impacts who applies. Salary benchmarking pulled from market data, so you're not posting a role that's 20% below market and wondering why nobody bites. And here's what I think matters most. Transparency. The number one red flag for me in a job posting is when something isn't transparent. If they don't talk about their salary, if the posting doesn't clearly indicate good culture, that's a major red flag. The green flags are the opposite. This is what the pay is, this is what we're expecting of you, and we're not going to ask for much more unless you're moving to a different role. Those are great to see in a job description. Agent 1 should be building those green flags into every spec it writes, and the output flows straight into Agent 2. Agent 2 gets the job spec and goes looking for people, not posting and praying, actively sourcing. It searches LinkedIn's 900 million plus profiles. It checks GitHub for open source contributors with relevant skills, Stack Overflow, niche job boards, and this is the part most recruiters skip, your own ATS database. And I can tell you from experience, there are great candidates already sitting in the system. When you hear stories of 1,000 applicants for a position, you realize there's a crop of really good people in there. While everyone's focused on the big push to attract new applicants, they're already talented individuals you've talked to before. Here's something I learned from hiring in hospitality. Good people bring good people. If I had a great employee, I would trust their recommendation when they had a friend looking for work. A good person is going to know another good person and another good worker. Very rarely did that not work out. Agent 2 should be flagging those referral connections when they exist in the data. Eightfold AI does something like this at scale. They've trained deep learning models on over 1 billion talent profiles, not just matching keywords, but inferring skills from career trajectories. If someone spent 5 years at a company known for Kubernetes infrastructure, the model infers that skill even if the resume doesn't say the word Kubernetes. LinkedIn's Recruiter AI now has recommended matches that surface candidates who are 35% more likely to respond to outreach. That's not a small number when you're sending hundreds of InMails. Agent 2 outputs a ranked candidate list with match scores and where each person was found. Then they hand it to Agent 3. Now, Agent 3 is our screening agent. This is the volume handler, and it's also the most controversial agent in the pipeline. So let me be straight about what it does and what the risks are. Agent 3 takes the sourced candidates, plus your inbound applicants, all 250 of them, and runs structured evaluation against the job spec. Not keyword matching, skills inference. If someone's resume says built and maintained container orchestration systems for a 200-person engineering organization, that maps to Kubernetes, Docker, CI/CD, and infrastructure at scale, even if none of those exact words appear. It produces a short list with structured scorecards. Each candidate gets a breakdown. Here's how they match on required skills. Here's how they match on preferred qualifications. Here's what's uncertain and needs a human to verify. Now look, everyone wants to blame the robots. But if you have 1,000 applicants, it's literally just not worth it for a human or a team of humans to go through every single resume. And if you've ever been in a position where you've reviewed resumes in large amounts, it's really hard to stay focused. The way the resume looks, multi-page versus single page, too much information, not enough, all that stuff matters, even to a human reviewer. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of going the other direction too. I took my own resume and ran it through ChatGPT to make sure I was hitting all the key points AI screening would look for. If AI is going to screen for it, let's optimize for that. But if everybody's doing that, it becomes a nightmare. Hiring somebody off of a resume alone is almost impossible nowadays. Interviews are where it actually starts to matter. 83% of companies already use some form of AI resume screening, but 67% acknowledge bias concerns, and the right to be concerned. Amazon built an AI recruiting tool in 2018 that had to be scrapped because it systematically downgraded resumes from women. That gap between usage and trust, it tells me we really have to work on this, because ultimately, if you're smart, you want to be the best worker. It behooves these companies to have good AI screening. If AI can accurately screen with as little bias as possible is at a 99% success rate, that's exactly what it's there for. HiredScore, now owned by Workday, handles this by integrating directly into your ATS and producing bias audit logs alongside every screening decision. That's not a nice to have. In New York, it's legally required. And the December 2025 Comptroller's audit found enforcement has been weak, which means it's about to get stricter. Agent 3 produces the shortlist, but it also produces the audit trail. Both go forward to Agent 4. Now, Agent 4 is our outreach and scheduling agent. This is the agent that candidates actually interact with, even if they don't realize it. Agent 4 takes the shortlist and handles two things, outreach and scheduling. On the outreach side, personalized messages, not the "Dear candidate, I came across your profile and was impressed by your experience" template. And look, I think those are fine. Headhunters and recruiters are in it for the numbers game, and that's their job. But the follow-up is what matters. If I respond to one of those and I get a quick reply from an actual human instead of another blast, that's when it starts to work. LinkedIn's AI-assisted messaging already shows a 44% higher acceptance rate on InMails when AI helps draft the message. But scheduling is where this agent really shines. Let me give you a number. One enterprise company reported that before their AI scheduling assistant, average time to schedule an interview was 26 hours. After, 18 minutes. 26 hours to 18 minutes. And I have to say, this is one of the most relatable human experiences there is. I play Dungeons and Dragons, and one of the running jokes in D&D is that the hardest part isn't actually setting up the game, or playing the characters, or figuring out the rules. The hardest part is that it's almost impossible to get 4 adults to have the same weekly schedule where they can all meet on a Wednesday or a Sunday or whatever a day is. That's the real final boss. One company that's doing this is Paradox. Their AI assistant, Olivia, handles candidate communication via text, finds open slots across recruiter, hiring manager, and panel calendars, and confirms the booking. It sends prep materials and follows up if someone needs to reschedule. Chipotle uses it and cut time to hire by 75%. GM saves $2 million a year on it, and candidates actually like it. Paradox reports a 99.78% positive experience rating. It's weird, but turns out that people prefer a fast text exchange over 5 days of email tag. Agent 4 books the interviews and sends it to Agent 5. Now, Agent 5 is the feedback loop that turns recruiting from reactive to strategic. It tracks everything across the pipeline. Time to hire by role, by departments, by hiring manager, source quality, which channels produce actual hires versus which ones are just generate volume, screening pass-through rates, offer acceptance rates, and diversity metrics at each stage of the funnel. Because if your pipeline starts diverse and ends homogenous, you need to know where the drop-off happens. Now, with that being said, this can be expensive. So here's the insight that changes how you spend money. When you can see that 60% of your engineering hires come from GitHub sourcing and direct outreach, but only 10% come from job board applications, you probably stop dumping budget into job boards. That sounds obvious, but without this data, most recruiting teams are just guessing. And from my own experience, I didn't specifically track this stuff when I was hiring in hospitality, but I could kind of feel it. Good people brought good people. Referrals from my best employees almost always worked out. If I'd had an analytics agent showing me that data in black and white, I probably would have doubled down on referral programs and probably would have saved a lot of time on job board postings that produced a revolving door. Agent 5 produces weekly dashboards, flags bottlenecks. This role has been in screening for 12 days, the average is 3, and over time it tunes the entire pipeline. The sourcing agent gets better because the analytics tell it which sources produce hires. The screening agent gets better because the analytics show where false positives and false negatives cluster. The pipeline learns, and that's kind of the whole point. Let me run the whole thing one time so you can feel the speed. Monday morning, the hiring manager submits an intake for a senior data engineer. Agent 1 writes and posts the job spec in 10 minutes. By lunch, Agent 2 has surfaced 50 qualified candidates from LinkedIn, GitHub, and the internal ATS. Agent 3 screens all 50, plus the 80 inbound applicants that came in overnight, shortlists 12, and produces scorecards and audit logs. Agent 4 sends personalized outreach to the 12, and by the end of the day, 8 interviews are booked for the rest of the week. And Agent 5 is tracking the whole thing in real time. The hiring manager can see exactly where the pipeline stands without sending any updates email. That same process used to take 2 to 3 weeks. With this pipeline, first round interviews are happening on day 1. And I want to be clear. Unilever already proved this works at scale. They used HireVue and Pymetrics to process 250,000 applicants for 800 positions. Time to hire dropped by 90%. They saved 50,000 hours and over $1 million annually, and diversity in the candidate pool improved by 16%. This isn't theoretical anymore, it's operational. But let's pump the brakes here. AI screening bias is also not hypothetical. For example, Amazon's tool penalized women. Early resume parsers penalized non-Western names. These aren't edge cases. They're what happens when you deploy AI on human decisions without rigorous auditing. But my honest take, it would be a dream if you had an AI that could go through 10,000 applicants and find the best person with zero bias. That would be awesome for the company and for the individual. But I don't think we'll fully ever get there. Because here's what AI can't do. Humans make up the culture of an office or a business. And that culture, in my opinion, is the most important thing. It's the most important driver of actual functionality in the business. Alex Hormozi actually talks about this quite a bit. The people you allow to stay in your business ultimately show you what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. If you have salespeople who are killing it, but who are pain to work with, that's clearly what you've accepted. It sends the message to everybody. Culture fit is entirely human. I don't think AI will ever be able to do that because it's innately a feeling thing. It just really is. I'd rather find a hardworking, eager, open-minded, good person that I can train to do a role versus a person who's perfect on paper but hard to work with. I'd rather train 100 consistent 90% people than deal with the 5 nightmare top performers. The final hiring decision must be a person. Full stop. The pipeline handles volume, surfaces signal, and creates structure, but in my opinion, the human has to be the final step. If you're a recruiter and any of this resonated with you, or if you're a job seeker who has just realized what's happening on the other side of the curtain, drop a comment. I want to know, does your company use AI in hiring, and do the candidates know? Because ultimately, transparency at its core is just linked to integrity. And if you're not being transparent about something, whether it's by choice or by accident, that's not good. Transparency and integrity build the right kind of culture. And as I've already said, culture, in my opinion, is the most important thing in a job. And if you're a job seeker, here's my honest advice. If there's a career you want to get into, try to link up with people who are already doing it. Find a mentor. Find someone who does the job you want to apply for. You're going to learn how they actually describe their day, and you'll see if that's actually a good fit for you. Because if you're unhappy with what you do, that bleeds into everything. Subscribe if you want to see how this plays out across other roles. Next episode, we're looking at accountants and bookkeepers. If you think reconciling spreadsheets and categorizing expenses is safe from AI agents, that episode's going to change your mind. I'll see you there.